we go. Hey, folks, it's Lindsey Huddleston back in the building with SPS, the SPS Edge Show, with my very able-bodied co-host, Mr. Terry McCord Jr. And we wouldn't be here on this platform getting our reach out if it wasn't for Coach Orlando Watkins, always holding us down. We call him Houston because we are NASA. We're space travelers out in the world talking sports, social justice, and whatever else comes to mind. And I guess a little health policy because COVID is all the talk right now, huh, Terry?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, you've seen a lot of things with cancellation of NCAA football games and some basketball games that have affected teams nearby. MSU being canceled their Big Ten ACC Challenge game against the University of Virginia. So we're seeing it happen right in front of us, and now we just gotta keep the ball rolling and continue to make adjustments and keep going, keep playing.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on that piece with the cancellation because Michigan State was actually in Virginia. They got on a plane, took an hour and a half flight, and they were there, and they had to come back. So we'll definitely touch upon that. But, one thing that I wanted to work on, shout out to our gear today, too. We rocking some mid-Michigan love. I see you rocking Eastern. I'm over here rocking Waverly, and I went looking for some Eastern gear. I know Coach Jones going to be on my head about it. I didn't have anything close by. But I want to shout out both these programs. For me personally, I've been able to work closely with you at Eastern. That's how we started our relationship. I want to shout out the whole Waverly program over there, Scott Castile, the athletic director, the coaching staff over there, both football and basketball. My guy Pizzo, Coach Pizzo, my guy Chad, holding it down. And I just appreciate these programs because you guys have really been the foundation for me starting SPS, being able to have access, and you've probably been the best pupil I've been able to work with, Terry. I mean, you look at from where we came and where we are, and to be honest, where I think we're going to go. It's a great thing. So it's cool that we can sit back and rock, show some love to Mid-Michigan athletic programs that have been a significant part of my career and, of course, a part of yours. But, one thing that you and I have been talking back and forth on is always cool when we can talk offline about the latest thing. We have not been able to acknowledge Sarah Fuller, who is first female to play football in a major college program. She's a Vanderbilt kicker. She was a soccer player. And when I did a little research into her, Terry, I was really kind of impressed with her sports story because she has a sports story that's universal. She had a broken foot. She had set out for a while. She admitted that she had some anger issues and she had the wrong mentality and she had to really work on herself. And it was her soccer teammates, Terry, that checked her basically and said, look, your attitude is bad. This is not working. And when she started making those changes and adjustments in her attitude and her mental outlook, it led to different opportunities. And as you know, she started in the game as a kicker, which is a first. But I guess the reason why I wanted to bring it up is twofold, Terry, and I want to get your thoughts on it. One, it is historic. And two, man, she got so much hate. There was so much vitriol on social media about her. I think somebody posted, I hope somebody breaks her in half. And Terry, I don't get it. What's the hate for a girl playing football? I mean, why does it have to be so much like mean, nasty? Like I hope like hurt her so bad. It's almost like what they said about Jackie Robinson when he came into Major League Baseball, or what happens when African Americans were breaking color barriers in sports. It's like, and I'm a parent of a young lady, and I don't think my daughter wants to play football. Do you want to play football, baby? She says no. She said I'm straight on that, but I'm still going to advocate for that. So, what's your thoughts on Sarah Fuller breaking the glass ceiling and entering college football?
Man, I thought it was a very monumental move, game for her, and it was a big statement by their program. But there have been, some challenges about them maybe making a publicity stunt and like trying to just do it and then not giving her a chance. And I think they wanted to give her a chance to kick a field goal, but they fumbled the ball down the red zone and one of their drives, and they just never really got there. Vanderbilt's not a good football team, so I mean it was kind of hard to give her a chance to like score a point for them. And just to see the hate, I saw people on social media talking about it, and usually you see kickers get, unfortunately, death threats or
Right.
things that aren't really nice to say to them for missing a kick. And this is someone that didn't even get a kick, so then it's like someone who is a wonderful woman that has gone through struggles and now has made a mark on history. And you got grown men out here saying these terrible, sexist, um, I call it toxic masculinity, very bad comments about her. I mean, they're talking about breaking her in half. I hope she does this, and just things I wouldn't repeat. But I mean, a lot of these things they wouldn't say around their daughter, or they wouldn't let another male say to their daughter. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like you gotta check yourself. You gotta look at what you post, and would you want this said to your daughter, or would you say this around your daughter? That was my question to those men that were posting that. And sadly, it is mostly men that are saying that. And
Yeah,
it's sad to see that, you see women continue to strive. Because I mean, there have been a ton of women football players. We had one at Eastern, shout out Yolanda Krim. She played right guard. She was really good. And so we see that, and finally someone, makes their mark on college football, and we're not getting a whole, we're not getting a total positivity remarks from people, and it's sad to see that.
yeah. It's unfortunate, man. As I was thinking about her, two things. The same guys who were talking, if they were playing, you know how football goes. You mess around a play breaks, and she'll turn around and she'll put that wood on you, and she'll drop it on you real good. I mean, that'll be one. And then also I think about Kyra, excuse me, I'm drawing a blank. Kyra Lawson, the new coach at Duke. Hey man,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I got a professional crush on her that's so hard, dude, that every time she speaks, I just lock in. And with her experience as a college, player, WNBA, world champion, being assistant coach with the Boston Celtics, she just breaks down things about the game so smooth to where you would just assume that whoever's playing for is going to have success. And I'll be willing to bet, I'll put this out here now on the SPS Edge Show, that Kara Lawson is probably going to be the first female head coach in the NBA over San Antonio's. I forget San Antonio's.
Oh, Becky Harmons. I
Yeah,
think it's the last name.
only because, man, she's her level of communication is so. It's just so smooth, and I remember seeing her talking to like Carson Edwards, who was the one of the Boston
Oh
Celtics,
yeah. Yep.
played for Purdue, and you see her there going through film with him, and he's just talking. He was like, "Look, man, she's a great coach. It's like there's nothing to it. If she knows her stuff, she knows her stuff." But I think the same story is with Sarah Fuller, and I'm thankful that we have a platform, Terry, that you and I, because we did go back and forth. We said, "Oh man, we missed talking about Sarah Fuller," and I'm grateful that we have our own platform that we can come back and say, you know what? It may not be the biggest news of the day, but here at the SPS Edge Show, Lindsey Huddleston, Terry McCord, and even Coach Orlando Watkins, we're going to go on record acknowledging her, wishing her the best, and telling people get over themselves. The reality is that, man, we're going to look forward to the future. You're going to have a lot of diversity in sport. It just won't always be just all, and we have to, be just all men, and we have to have the mindset, especially as leaders and influencers, to be able to see the bigger picture and provide opportunities when they're available.
Right, and I think I misspoke. I think it's Becky Hammonds. Hammonds.
Yeah, man, I
and
was
so, yeah, I mean, I think you're right on the nail for this one. I think just the story of Carson Edwards, who's a great collegiate basketball player, kind of translating his game into the NBA and kind of finding a role with the Celtics. Another person I shout out, probably one of my favorite basketball analysts, is Doris Burke. She went from sideline reports on 2K and on ESPN to now head analyst on 2K, which is big because I think she was like the first woman to be on 2K and like have her voice out there. She's the headline analyst of prime time games on Wednesday, Friday that we stay up and watch, and we see her on these big games. I mean, the way she breaks things down. I mean, there's stuff that I didn't even know. I wouldn't know if she didn't tell me, and I think she like gives me a different perspective on what the person may be thinking. Like we may be like, oh man, that's a terrible shot. Why is he doing that? And she'll break it down and be like, well, that was the best scenario because you got to get this guy's in the best position to score. And she'll bring up some crazy efficiency stat. And I'm like, man, like I wouldn't have even thought of that. So I think a lot of these women have to be on top of their games, unfortunately to get respect, but they're doing their thing. I mean, Kara Lawson, she'd be on there on the halftime reports. Me and my family watch the WNBA, college basketball, just talking about it. She's on there with Rebecca Lobo and really breaking it down. They know what they're talking about. Give them props.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't the case. And I'm not one saying it's only because she's a woman. she ain't gonna get out there. Neither one gonna get called out where they're not solid. And Doris Burke is a welcome voice to hear, especially on Christmas Day. I mean, she brings a different level of levity to it. But I just guess, man, maybe that just speaks to us being at a point that there's a level of security that we have as men that's not an issue for me. You know, like I don't care. I'm like, okay. And then for people who say, well, what happens? What do we do now? If more, we're like, I don't care, man. It's like, what does it matter? She can bring it if that's the opportunity. And I just think it's important. But I think what normally happens is, in most cases, we only advocate for our own self-interest, meaning advocating for other African-American men. I get that. But in this particular case, man, big up to the women who are trying to do it, man. I'm just not even, it's enough for all of us to eat. Don't get caught up on it. And I do agree that is a form of toxic masculinity. That's an excellent example of toxic masculinity, that you think you got to put a woman down. Because what'll happen is, for whatever she's going for, whether it's Sarah Fuller, kicking a field goal, Doris Burke, on the commentating, or Carl Lawson, breaking it down, you probably don't want to go head to head with them. I mean, they probably go own that space, and I got nothing but respect. So I'm glad that we were able to get that out there and say that. As we look at the calendar and what we have, man, a few other things we can talk about. We're going to talk about Michigan State and Penn State. That game got moved from 3:30 Saturday to 12:30. I'll share this with you. A really big statement from Coach Mel Tucker that kind of went off into something else. I'll talk about that. We're going to talk about University of Michigan and your beloved Ohio State. They got the call that OSU will still be able to get in and play that COVID-19 game. That game, despite it being canceled, them not having enough wins, but the Big Ten made the necessary changes. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the LSU player holding out and some other LSU players holding out because they weren't really happy with some of the actions of the head coach, Coach O. Orgeron. How do you say his name, Coach O?
Orgeron, yep.
Yeah, you got to say it like this. That's how I talk. And then we'll talk about MSU versus UVA, Michigan State versus Virginia. That game didn't happen. It was going to be a matchup of the Hauser brothers, younger brother Joey at Michigan State and older brother Sam. They both were at Marquette together and they transferred, but I was able to talk to Coach Izzo before that game, and we kind of laughed and joke about that before they went down there. And then we'll touch on a little bit more, if time permits, with MHSA and the hold on that's going on here on Michigan sports, particularly football, as they get ready for basketball. NBA training camp, if time permits, as well as Harden in this holdout, and the LeBron versus Kyrie discussion that's been going on. But what I want to do right now, I just want to go back and share some information about Mel Tucker in this last press conference. I got nothing but love for Coach Tucker all the way. And last Sunday, when Western Michigan took on Michigan State and lost, Coach Izzo made a point at the end of the press conference to publicly acknowledge Coach Tucker and saying, hey, we need to support Mel during this time right now and all those type of things. So me being who I am, I took that back to Coach Tucker and brought that up to him in his press conference to get some feedback. And he gave some jewels about his relationship with Coach Tom Izzo and what he plans on, what kind of support he plans on continuing to have for him. So give me a second and I'll pull that up and we'll talk about that. Here we go. See here. Share.
I think it's just good to see, a Hall of Fame coach that's been there for longer than I've been alive at MSU, and really kind of bringing in like a little brother, like a person that's trying to establish himself there, and you love to see that for Michigan State sports.
No doubt. If we're good, this thing should open up. So here we go.
Hey Mel.
That's not it. And before we get into this, I want to shout out to the Streets of Watching Podcast Network. Shout out to Don Houston and my guy Clarence Barbora. We got a chance to talk today. They're doing some big things. They're going to be announcing some more big things. Oh, and Terry, by the way, our podcast has been extended. So not only are we on the Streets of Talking Podcast Network Saturday and Sunday, 12 Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be on Monday and Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to have 4 slots in 4 days, brother. They say we're doing such a good job. They want to keep it going. And there's some other things that will be announced really soon about our work with the Streets of Talking Podcast Network. You can hear us at the Streets of Talking.com. Check us out, and you'll get more information like what we're about to share right now.
Huddleston? Thank you. Hey, Mel, you mentioned in your opening comments about acknowledging supporters. Most of us on this call on Sunday after the Western Michigan basketball game heard Tom Izzo pretty much stop the press conference and make a point to acknowledge you and ask for people to support you during this rebuilding time. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship with Tom Izzo and what it means to have him make a point to come out publicly to support you through your transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. Coach Izzo and I, speak on a regular basis. Either we communicate by text or call. Sometimes, he'll stop by and I'll get a chance to visit with him, or he'll come to practice. I also talk to Coach Garland. Also talk to Dwayne. Coaches there. I get calls from Cleves. I get text messages from Steve. I get texts and calls from Magic, and that type of deal. So, we have a connection. When I was here before in '97, Tom was here. Obviously I was a GA, but, we spent a lot of time, recruiting. We'd be in Nick's basement, and so I got a chance to see him there. And then I would see him throughout the years. Like when we were at LSU, he'd come down there and check Coach Saban. I would see him there. When Nick's daughter, got married in Tuscaloosa, got a chance to see him there, and some of the other Michigan State people. So, we do have a relationship. And it's not a one-way street. I reach out to him, he's reaching out to me, and we're always constantly talking. I feel like we see a lot of things the same way, just about toughness and hard coaching, and not making excuses and finding a way to get it done, and being appreciative of the opportunity that we do have, and never relaxing, and always fighting and being basically bootstrappers, and so, I support him and everything he's doing, and he supports me. And, one of the things that I wanted to know, during the process of looking at this opportunity is, where was Coach Izzo on this with me? Because, quite frankly, in order for me to be successful here, I want his, I feel like I want and need his support, because he's been here so long. He's done so many great things. He's a Hall of Fame coach. I can learn a lot from him, and getting support from him, goes a long way for me and for my program, for my coaching staff. And so I really appreciate that. I don't think he would support me if he didn't believe in me, because he's not that type of guy.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry. I mean, for our listeners, just to clarify, when he said Cleves, he was referring to national champion Martin Cleves. When he said Steve, he was referring to NBA All-Star and NBA analyst Steve Smith. When he said Magic, of course, he was referring to the legendary Irvin Magic Johnson. And of course, those coaches he mentioned were Coach OG, Coach Garland, as well as Coach Dwayne Stevens, associate head coach. I mean, so he just said it right there, man. He said, I'm in. So what'd you think about that, Terry?
No, that's exactly what, the rebuilding stage for Spartan country needs. I mean, the community coming, professional athletes, those that have made it through, who have that Spartan blood in them, giving their support back. I mean, in reality, I mean, they see a program that's in need of rejuvenance, like, some more energy, and that needs to be brought up, after the tough year with with the sexual assault charges with Nasser, and the things in Coach D'Antonio's walking away part of the off season was tough. It was tough. It was hard to hold your head as a Spartan fan, and bringing a guy who wants to bring it back and who's been here before, like you mentioned with meeting Coach Izzo in the past, and being a part of the Nick Saban kind of coaching staff. We know what we're gonna get. I mean, we see how tough Saban is, and we see how tough Coach Tucker is. I mean, I remember watching that Ohio State game this past weekend, and there was a late hit I'm missing his name. Number 21 on Michigan State's defense, and Coach Tucker was livid. I mean, I was afraid watching on my bed.
So you was experienced. Well, he got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. It was 2 penalties. It was a lay hit, and Coach Tucker got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty.
And I think the second one was him talking to his player, and then the coach was like, and the ref was like, "Yo, like I don't know if he thought he was talking to the ref," and so he threw it, and so it was just a lot of emotion. I mean, I feel like he usually tries to keep it pretty calm on the sideline throughout the game. I like that about him, cool, calm, and collective. But I think right there you can just see that competitive nature in him, just like man, just mad and upset, just like because they were. There were moments where they tried to claw and inch their way back in there a little bit after the score of Peyton Thorne. But then again, it's like that penalty gave them, 15 more yards and kept them going. And, you just love that about them. I mean, you just see people coming and supporting them. And, it goes to say with the influence that Coach Izzo has of Michigan State fans, he's like saying like, hey, I mean, you guys have been here for me. It's time to help Coach Tucker out. They need this. They need the support right now. We're doing well here. There's nothing to worry about that here, but right there, we need to give them the love and support that y'all have given me for the last years. And he deserves that. He's been nothing but, competitive and, he's brought nothing but positive vibes and energy. So I think he deserves that support.
Yeah. And I just made a point. It's so funny that when I asked that question in the press conference, that ended up becoming an article in the Free Press all by itself. So that question was a setup because it was so much information that he gave in response to that the Free Press was like, oh, man, this is a major article. And they even talked about that was the one press conference that kind of changed everyone's opinion of him because he had been what they call surly, kind of guarded. But then he kind of joked a little bit. And I think at the very end, Justin Rose, who's with one of the Grand Rapids stations, he came on and he was asking about the land grant trophy. That's the trophy that's between Michigan State and Penn State. And it's been known as being, they call it the ugliest trophy ever. It's just kind of weird to set up. It's always like something like something still needs to be worked on. But Coach Tucker had the best response, man. He said, I don't know about the aesthetics of the land grant trophy, but like an ugly baby, you would take it. But he basically kind of showed a different side of his character. And I think that helped win people over, especially coming off that public statement from Tom. But I made a point, man, to really get that out there because we know how it is, man, as a coach or just especially as an African-American coach who's not having this winning record. And Lord knows if it wasn't for the Michigan win and that Northwestern win, what did you say, Terry? It'd have been bad. They'd have been calling for him to run up out of there. But Coach Izzo knows. I mean, when Coach Izzo started his career, they were calling for him to go. Yeah. If it wasn't until he beat Tulsa and Maui that he started getting some momentum and they started doing something. But Coach Izzo was a couple seasons away from being put out. So who knows what would have been. But I think it was important to put that out there. And I'm glad that our listeners and viewers could be able to get that. Keeping with time, man, let's talk about U of M and Ohio State. I mean, they couldn't do it. Some are saying it was the white flag, that Michigan had to wave the white flag. But the reality, let's talk about it, man. Let's not use. I don't. My hope is that I never plan to use COVID as an excuse to say, well, because of COVID we didn't play. I'm like, COVID is the most important thing that's happening right now. So if there's a COVID issue, it's just that, man. It's just that.
Yeah.
So people are saying all kind of things. It's probably best that they didn't play in the sense that, because Ryan Day was threatening to put up on hanging 100 on Michigan. You know what I'm saying?
200 now. He got 100 with some interest. Yep.
Yeah. He's going to put some more on there. So it's almost best that it happened. And then I want to, I guess, give credit to Ward Manuel, the athletic director for University of Michigan, who's being extremely professional. He's not throwing Jim Harbaugh under the bus. He said, I told Jim Harbaugh we would talk after the season. It doesn't mean that he can't get fired between today and the end of the season, but he at least gave him the credibility to say, look, he got one more year on his extension. I don't think they're going to extend his contract.
Nah, he's going to write it out.
Because if you don't start fixing things now for the program, what are you going to have? I mean, what do you think? I mean, I know your bias is towards Ohio State, but what do you think about the whole Ohio State Michigan game being called off because of the COVID issues?
So, I mean, my take on it is that am I disappointed? Yeah, as a fan of Ohio State, I'm disappointed, but I understand. I think it kind of felt like, I don't know if really Michigan was trying to play but they didn't really have anything to play for. But I think, it's COVID. My dad brought this up to me, and we were talking about the game, and he was like, worst case scenario, they play that game and they have COVID, and then Ohio State goes back home and they test positive for COVID, and they miss out on Northwestern game. Players miss out, and then some of them may miss out of the playoffs. So I mean, there's a lot of things that come with that. But I mean, with the whole thing it's the first time it's been called off like this, because there hasn't been anything like COVID before. So I mean, it's tough to see that affect such a big game. I think things were said about, with Harbaugh making some remarks about, Ohio State practicing and
early in the
getting
season,
their play early in the season about the 100 points. And I like to say that now that it's carried over, it's gonna have a little interest, like some credit. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna have a little interest, a little 2% credit on that. So
add a little 2% on there, a little bit on there.
So yeah, I mean, it's tough though. I mean, it's hard. It's one of these things where you don't want your competitive drive to outweigh what's right. And I think them calling it off early makes a lot more sense than calling it off Thursday, like today, calling it off tomorrow, letting it build up. And, I think they called it off early, gives Ohio State chance to prep, heal up, because they had their COVID battle too, heal up, and then get ready for Northwestern. So I think they made the right choice at the right time.
I mean, speaking of being in the press box at Michigan State versus Ohio State, I mean, I looked over there at the field, Terry, and it was like Lansing Eastern High School on the other side. It was it was like so few players over there. You can noticeably see it. And because where I sit in the press box, if I look to my immediate right, I always see the visiting team's athletic director's box. So right. Steve Smith, he's right there in the box with his wife, and one of my colleagues chopped it up with him a little bit. So there is that whole rivalry thing. But at the end of the day, Ohio State got bigger fish to fry. They could get caught up that COVID. They're trying to get in the Big Ten championship. And, that's a perfect segue I guess we can have, and we can jump on that, and then we'll make our way back to Michigan State basketball. But, what do you think about the decision of the Big Ten changing the 6-game rule to allow Ohio State to be able to play Northwestern for the Big Ten championship in a couple of weeks?
So for this view, I've remained objective, in a standpoint of like,
you bleed Buckeye,
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like we should have been in there for sure. I think they put the best team in the East, but I think a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people see the 6-game rule, you know what I mean, and think that's the only way to determine the best team. Rules are rules. That's part of the reason why I see both sides. Rules are rules, but I think the whole thing, as you go throughout the season, that the better team in the East was Ohio State. I mean, if you go down the line, because I mean, you could argue that they needed 6 wins, but then again, it's like, is that best team going to be in there? There's a lot of discussions about, they knew that if Ohio State was in that Big Ten game, a Big Ten championship game against Northwestern, they knew who was going to win that game, and they know that means they're going to have money that's going to be in the college football playoff. They don't want Indiana to get in there and possibly kind of jeopardize Ohio State maybe getting in. It's just, it's a chance. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things.
The sad thing about it is the great story that Indiana football has been this season. People we don't care about that. We talking about bread right now. Like, we don't care about that. And then they went and made the argument, which I can agree with, that Ohio State, though it was a close game, they beat Indiana. So it doesn't even so I get that. But to that point about rules are rules, it's just interesting that people normally only want to promote the rule when it's to their favor. Now, that can fall back into our social justice conversation, or when somebody doesn't want something to happen, that's when they say rules are rules. But in this particular case, I think the Big Ten was right not to shoot himself in the foot or cut off his nose to spite his face, because if you don't put Ohio State in that Big Ten championship game, you run the risk of them not even be able to be in a college playoff and potentially win a national championship. So the Big Ten was like, look, we got our own little thing going on. We'll take care of that. And I think it was smooth. It was okay. But it does show you, man, how things can change and things are left to the discretion of what the majority is pushing for, because there's so much money behind this. And they said, oh, we'll make this change. Don't think anything about it. So that was interesting. So what I want to do to stay on time, man, I think we can work our way where we can get through all these great things we want to talk about. Again, I want to take a moment to shout out the Streets of Talking Podcast Network. You can listen to us Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, Saturday and Sunday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at www.thestreetsoftalking.com, but also on Monday and Tuesday, Terry, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll be able to hear us as well. Talk about Coach Tom Izzo. Coach Tom Izzo was getting ready to get on the plane. Well, he did get on the plane, but what was going to be so big about this game against Virginia, not necessarily the circle offense that, they were going to be running, but it was going to be the fact that there was going to be potentially the first game Michigan State was going to play with fans. So what I'll do right now, I'll give you the question I was asking him at the recent press conference that we had. Coaches and I have a great time, and a lot of it, I get emails, man, from all over the country, people appreciating the dialogue that we have. But what it is just the benefit of having a rapport with somebody. Even like you and I, Terry, you and I have this rapport. We work really well together. Well, heck, we've been dealing with each other for so long. You know what I'm saying? So with that, let me see if I can pull this up for Coach Izzo. We'll pull up his comments.
It seemed like he loosening up a little bit this year. I mean, he kind of realizing that, you guys aren't in front of him asking these questions, and he gets that time to debrief, kind of cool off after the games and just kind of be himself a little bit, relax. It's COVID, it's 2020. You got to find a way to make it, be you on
He'll be
camera.
the first one to say that he misses us. He even said after the Duke game, he wished that we were there, Here, I'll play this remark right here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go next to Lindsey Huddleston.
All right, Tom, I know you're focused on Virginia. You probably went to bed and woke up thinking about circles, but when you talked to us last Sunday, you must have. When you talked to us, you talked about adding more cardboard cutouts, and now VA is going to have 250 fans. Can you talk about the importance of that mental stimulation of having fans or perceiving to have fans? That seems to be a thing right now.
Well, you could ask those mental preparation statements, and I appreciate that. But you're right on the money, I mean, a little bit away, it's going to be weird. I mean, my kids come into an arena now, and there's nobody there. And the cutouts have been great. Just what we did on the bottom, it just brings some levity to the situation. It also, when you got music, I heard they played one tournament game. I was talking to both Kentucky and Illinois, and in one of the sites, and there was nothing, no music, no nothing, and it just seemed crap, This is going to be weird. We'll go in there, 250 doesn't sound like many, but if they're all down low, I don't know how it'll be. It'll just be a new adjustment. But I think in general, we've got 5 games under our belt. We understand what it's like to go to Duke and not have the Cameron Crazies there. We understand what it's like to not have the Izzone at our place. Hopefully that won't play a major factor, but I think all these issues of the mental approach to the game has become more and more important. And I said, when this is all done, I'm going to be a better coach because of it. And I think players will be better prepared to handle other things in life because of it. It's just a little tough to go through at the time.
I get it. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. I saw you shake your head, Terry, when he talked about, no music being played. I mean, the reality is that LeBron James said that him winning, he's been part of 2 of the hardest won championships. He talked about coming back being down 3-1 and winning. And, you can argue one way or the other with that. But he also said playing in the bubble. And it's so funny to me when he says I was talking to Kentucky or talking to Illinois. I mean, he's literally talking to these other, one Hall of Fame coach, John Calipari, and, Brad Underwood, because, they're colleagues. But Tom is worried about that, and I think what we don't really get to hear, but I just know based on my years dealing with him and the dialogue that we have is that he's thinking about those little things. I mean, he's thinking about it. He's saying, look, I want more cardboard cutouts in the Breslin Center. Some people will say, well, what does it matter? He's saying, dude, I got to use everything I can. And the one disadvantage of them not playing Virginia, and this is the question I was going to ask, and I'll probably ask him some iteration of that. I was like, dude, how eager were you to find out the impact of 250 fans? Because my thing is, in COVID, 250 fans got to feel like 10,000 people.
Sellout crowd.
Especially if they root against you. I don't know. What are you thinking?
No, I think it's going to be weird for players not only to go from no fans to fans and, a caliber game that they were going into and having that little minor upper edge with them cheering for you. And so I mean, I think it's gonna be like kind of like a high school game to me, and I think a lot of those players aren't really used to playing in those crowds. I mean, we're talking about players that are coming in that were that guy in their city. Everybody came to see Julius Marble play. Everybody came to see Foster Loyer. We heard about it in Lansing, Foster Loyer playing, and so I mean, everybody's going to see him play. Everyone's going to see Aaron Henry, Josh Langford, these top guys. You know, everyone's going to see them play. There'll only be like 250 fans, and then the go to say about the the Illinois and Kentucky no music. I mean,
Yeah,
come
somebody
on. I
dropped
mean,
the ball on that. Somebody on
come
that
on,
committee
man.
just dropped the ball, on that. But you see, that's like almost a horror story for
Yeah,
Tom. And he even said that he was watching the NBA in the bubble. I mean, he was locked into that. He was like, man, think about it. You got one of the biggest, most influential student sections next to the Cameron Crazies in the I-Zone. So he
yeah,
knows that's an advantage. And he's out here without that. And he was talking about how he told his son, Steven, Jack Hoiberg was one of my favorite players and one of my favorite young men, as well as Davis Smith, Steve Smith's son. Look, they were responsible for hyping up the bench during the UAD game. And even one of the reporters said that he heard it. And Coach Izzo said how he was going to go back and congratulate those guys for doing their job. But he has a point now where not only is he putting out the offense and the defense, he got to say, okay, who's going to be the cheerleaders? Because all these
that's a
things
good
mean a
point.
lot, and I think I like his point about saying when this is all over, he's going to be a better coach for it. But man, it was interesting to hear his comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, just one thing I'll point out, a lot of times people talk about in the NFL where if you can run the ball and play defense, it travels. So no matter where you go, no matter what you're gonna get, if you can run the ball, get 5 a pop, and your defense is playing well, you give yourself a chance to play you give yourself a chance to win the game. And I think MSU, even if they didn't go through that, but I think their chances were great. I mean, they're playing great defense, and I think to go with the the running the ball, I think for them is their fast break points. I mean, we know MSU is going to have that run to get them over the top. We saw it against Notre Dame, the 26-0. We saw a run push by against UAD at the end of the game, led by my man Rocket Watts coming in. We saw that Western Michigan, it was a little tight in the beginning, but we knew at some point MSU is going to get hot. They're going to lock in on defense and they're going to get out and go. So I think, with that being said and how they're bread and butter to play defense and runs and, and do run outs, I think, no matter if there's fans or there's not fans, I think they got a chance to win just because that's their go-to. That's what they do.
Well, they're one of the only teams where everybody crashes the offensive boards. So that, gets that break going. When you got guards who are crashing boards and turn around and kicking out, you're going to have that. I just think Tom, and he said this publicly, he's trying not to lose perspective. So it's almost like he's going. It's so funny because in the version of the video that I showed that shows me asking a question, the one that plays on the free press only shows his face. So when I made the comment, hey, Tom, I know you went to bed thinking about circles, he was laughing. He was like, yeah, he was shaking his head because, I don't know, I just guess as a former coach, knowing him, and you kind of know what these guys are thinking. I think that's the difference with me being part of the press corps, being more connected to playing. I'm not taking anything away from my colleagues who are in the press. But, I know that he went to bed thinking about, that UVA, the University of Virginia's plays. And he was like, yeah. So he has all these little things going on that he's micromanaging. And I think Tom is just, I don't want to say he's scared of falling over the cliff, but he's so very aware of where the edge is. I think he's so very aware of that. And I think all the things that he's been through in these last couple of years in particular have been setting him up. But, something he said a couple of weeks ago, that after we talked in the press conference, we were like, you're right. We are the defending Big Ten champions, and we beat Duke 2 out of 3 times. So now Tom is kind of getting his just due a little bit. And I know he don't care about whether the Cameron Crazies was there or not, but I think it's interesting. So staying with the topic of COVID and its impact, of course, just a couple of days ago, Governor Whitmer extended the stay-at-home order, and which put a halt to basically Michigan High School Athletic Association, particularly football, resuming their playoffs with 3 weeks to be able to get a state championship crown. Now at this point, they're going to revisit things. I want to say maybe the 16th of December. Who knows what's going to happen? I think all things are pointed towards, I'm sorry, just so you know, I got a news alert. that LeBron and AD will not play Friday, so I don't have no reason to watch that game. But
Right.
anyway,
Knew that. Yep.
I know why, but I'm like, I'm straight. But anyway, I don't know, man. High school sports, is it a wrap for high school sports? For this, the seasons they were working on.
I'm afraid so. I think it's a wrap. I'm just happy they were able to finish that district championship weekend and that run that they had for to crown some kind of champion. I mean, these kids have been working hard all summer, spring, even in the winter. Those that did year round, but I'm just glad they were able to feel that their hard work being paid off and get some kind of championship. But the way that it's looking and how she's doing the right thing. She's putting health first over any kind of enjoyment. But a great, a guy that I like to read his articles, Graham Couch of LSJ,
Graham.
he really put in perspective of like, if this is so important to people, show it. You know what I mean? Like if this is so important to you, you know what I'm saying? Like if you really want your kids or your people, to play and finish their game, do what you're supposed to do. Encourage other people to wear masks, social distance, stay home. Don't go out unless it's needed. Be safe. Keep in mind of those things. It's almost like a priority. Like if it's something like I've been hitting the gym a lot. I've been trying to get myself built, a little bit. I'm transferring from not being an athlete anymore. Yeah. So if I know that it's a priority for me, I'm gonna make time and go to the gym and work out. That's what we need to be doing with this pandemic. If we want our kids to go out and play and, for Whitmer to feel as if we're safe to go out and participate in high school sports, we need to let people know that this is something that we're serious about and encourage others. People have influence, if, my guy, Andrell, if he sends a tweet out that's saying everybody mask up, which he's been encouraging people to do, they're going to listen. If coaches are saying that, everybody just needs to be, put this as a priority to get safe, not only because it's the right thing to do, but then again, you want to finish your season. So I think people all around, wherever you're from, we got to make this a priority if you guys want it to return.
No, you're absolutely right, man. And it's funny how the politics gets into it. And you would hope that the politics, doesn't have that kind of role. But people claim they want to see basketball take place, but then they don't want to, or see football, finish up, but they don't want to take the proper precautions. And at this point, when you have a hospital saying, hey, please put an order in place because we don't have any more capacity. I mean,
right.
that's the reality of it. Because, like, where do you go? I saw a meme, and I guess, it's not trying to be light of COVID, with all due respect to COVID, but it was a good point. The meme had this guy making a face. It's one of the kids from that movie, The Millers. He says, is there a regular sick or is everything COVID? Like, can you even just get regular sick?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
And I was like, that's a good question, but I think about it. I don't want to have to know. I don't want to have to go to the hospital to figure out. I don't want to be in a situation. And I think about, with the work that I'm doing, I'm around a lot, but for the most part, I'm not. I'm either sitting in this chair, the interviews I'm doing, I'm sitting right here at home. I do go to a game, in Michigan State, we're all socially distant. They have it set up real nice. We're very far away from the players and whatnot. So I'm able to be able to function in this, but I think it's a blessing that I can keep going, but I can only imagine what it was like. I mean, I just thought right now I'll be getting ready for high school basketball. I was going to be profiling teams and doing all that. And I look forward to that opportunity whenever it comes again. But I'm just grateful, man, that I have the platform and have someone like you in Atlanta that we can sit and still be able to address these issues. But the reality is, man, it ain't going to work like that. We got to sit down. We got to be cool. And we got to just focus on what we got to do. And if we don't do it, the governor's going to do it for us. And that woman had a threat on her life. You think she care about what somebody going to say about her now at this point?
Right. Nothing to lose now. I mean, somebody already threatened the 100, the go-to or the worst thing that could happen, taking your life and taking you away. So
yeah,
nothing to lose.
Well, one thing that we're transitioning to, Duke canceled the rest of his non-conference scheduled game. Let's talk about that. Let's jump in on Coach Mike Krzyzewski, who I'm a fan of. When Duke played Michigan State here at Michigan State last year, I was happy to be able to ask a question to Mike Krzyzewski, shake his hand, that kind of thing. But, somebody made a comment, sometimes something can be posted on social media and the first comment you see can potentially influence how you look at it. And it was Coach K talking about, hey, we need to look at this thing. We need to sit down. You know, maybe we need to reassess. And somebody like, oh, yeah, would you be saying that if you didn't have 2 home losses? And then Nate Oates, coach of Alabama, you know, made the same kind of comment. Like, you know, are you saying that because you like people are like, it's all, there was a time, Terry, you know, and I'm sure Coach Watkins can agree. Nobody took shots at Coach K. Coach K was kind of like, you know, mafioso, to be honest. He really is literally, you know, you could argue mobbed up because he's a Chicago guy and they don't mess around. But Cass is like, yeah, coach, like, nah, man, you sound kind of suspect. It's like they didn't even want to give him the credibility that it was coming from a good place. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, you know, no matter if his intentions look good, you know, it kind of like, I kind of related to the Michigan scenario, you know, with the whole thing about playing or not. I mean, no matter what, it's never going to look good to one side, you know, with Duke talking about not playing the rest of their games and having 2 home losses to 2 contending teams that have a chance to win the national championship. I mean, it's hard to make that call, but then again, people remember that call that he said about, you know, NCAA basketball can't afford to miss another March. But then, you know, later on, we see another article, you know, remarks of him saying that he's not really a true believer of Indianapolis being a good bubble spot. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you want it to happen, then you don't. And that's what I'm thinking, like, did he know something about his team that we don't know? Are they going to be the same Duke that they were last year? Are they going to be good? You know, it makes you think, like, are you not confident in your team anymore? Now that you guys lost to MSU at home and lost to Illinois, and now it's like, all right, we're just going to focus on ACC play because North Carolina doesn't look that good. The biggest threat is probably UVA, Florida State, and, you know, and other teams that, you know, may give them a run for their money. But it's like, do you not want to play anymore?
Yeah, I mean, Coach K has a young team, and I will say, in all fairness to him, being on the media side, I can get if questions are being asked and they're piecing it together, but it doesn't sound consistent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like there's no consistency. He's kind of all over the place, and it just reminds you that as big and impactful Coach K is, he seems like sometimes he will side on things that are in his best interest with no question. And I say perfect example. You say, well, you know, 6 in one hand, half dozen the other. Perfect example we talked about with Grayson Allen when he was having all these horrible things take place when he was clearly kicking players. I mean, he was tripping. There's no way to get
a little
it.
kid.
His behavior was unacceptable. But then, you know, you hear, you know, Coach K say, oh, we're going to handle it internally. So he pretty much covered for him. But then I remember there was a time there was a player who, you know, pushed for a last-second shot at the end of the game. Oh, and Coach K lost his mind. Oh, that's not the way you play and all that. It's like, come on, dude. Are you getting senile? Were you forgetting? I just think that when you're a person of influence for so long, you probably don't even know when you're contradicting yourself.
That's true.
You're kind of doing what you want because you're used to having things your way. But I'm glad that people spoke up and said that. And I'm glad because it's almost kind of like Coach K, unless she was 5-0, and it'd be different if it was Tom Izzo saying it. If Tom Izzo like, look, I got COVID. I caught COVID. You know, it ain't even worth it. Yeah, we 5-0, but it ain't even worth it. You be like, okay, I get it. But Tom ain't saying nothing. Tom made a point after the Duke game. He's like, asterisk my ass. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, we won.
Yeah, we faced a head up. We went head to head against their team. Yep.
Exactly. So it's just interesting that we can say that. We're doing really good with time for the time that we have. You know, there's another thing to announce. I mean, tomorrow we'll be kicking off the NBA season, the 2020-2021 NBA season. Can you believe it, Terry? We're right back on it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You know, having this be, you know, the preseason and, you know, seeing NBA hoops be back. You know, like you mentioned, LeBron and AD aren't playing. I don't remember the last time LeBron James has played in a for real preseason game. Maybe like 5 minutes, you know, enough to get his legs moving and, you know, put some oil in his robot body, you know, get him
right.
So I mean, I wasn't expecting him to play, you know, with AD having some injury history. I didn't really expect him to play at all.
What's the point? You don't chance it.
None.
And that's what all these trades and stuff they're making. I mean, I use JaVale McGee as an example. I like JaVale McGee being a Laker, but I also realized that he almost was like a sacrificial lamb to be there big to get them all the way through the regular season and early to the postseason, so that when you get down to those critical last 2 or 3 series, you know, you got healthy bodies coming up. But man, they made some. I like how many people they gonna have on their roster? They got Montrezl Harrell, they got Schroeder. They talking about not only Mike, who the Gasol brothers, Paul is talking about coming there as well, along with his brother. Yeah. So it's like they're looking to be a real big team and do a lot. And I think rightfully so they're the odds-on favorite to win the NBA championship again.
Yeah, I think it's a good chance to see what's going on with other teams. I'm not really concerned about this game, the Lakers and Clippers, but I'm more concerned about young and upcoming teams and the rooks, getting some shine and squeaking some shoes, on the hardwood, getting out there, practicing that hard and learning the system and kind of getting put into a game kind of situation thing. So I think it's important for them to get and practice against players that they already, play against players that they've been playing against every day, someone else. And so I think it's always fun, like a scrimmage. You know what I mean? We always get amped up and finally go hit somebody else, in football. And then basketball, a new team, fresh blood is coming into your gym or you going to their gym. It's just a good feeling to know that you're competing against somebody other than your brother every day.
Yeah. Well, a few other things thrown there. My understanding, it won't be a bubble. But there are some new NBA restrictions. They're not allowing players to go to clubs. They said the only things you can do is team-oriented, team sponsor. And I can see how they can set it up. But man, oh man, you talk about Sweet Lou having some problems. What about these other players, man? How are these NBA guys who part of their lifestyle is being able to be the man in the club and do that? How are they going to be able to get through? Are you going to have some violations?
I think so, man. I think we already see what Harden. But the good news is though, we see how harsh the NBA is. I mean, Harden going to a club getting caught there instead of being at training camp. The NBA released that he needs to have 6 consecutive negative tests every day. He needs to test negative in order to go to training camp and play. So we see the consequences, like we did in the bubble where people who may be arriving late due to, family concern or emergency that may have to leave and then come back, which is completely fine. I mean, family first, 100%. But those that aren't doing what they're supposed to do, coming in, and then now they got to worry about getting 6 negative tests. Because, I mean, we hear about the false positives and all that. But then, to make sure, I guess, 3 ain't too good for the NBA. So they got to give you 3 more. So, I mean, it's like 6 of them.
It also speaks to James Harden being a prima donna. And I have nothing against James Harden. He's not a player that I dislike. But Kobe said it best. He's not a champion. He won't be a champion. No. I mean, the guy who shoots like that, you're not going to win. The guy who kind of wants a team jump, he's not going to go anywhere and play any defense. He showed you that he has nothing to bring in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? And
exactly,
these players in their career that when you get down to the nitty-gritty of when they're supposed to produce, especially with these big contracts, they give you nothing. So now we don't even know where he's going to be. They're talking about the idea that he may want to go to the 76ers. I'm like, where's really a good fit for him right now?
They said Heat, Bucks, Sixers, Brooklyn. Man, it's like my whole thing is like you need to stay in Houston. I mean, this franchise has committed to you as a basketball player. I mean, if my memory is correct, they didn't have a center because it focused on you offensively to get you more space and just put shooters around you. And like the only, technically non-shooter was Westbrook, and he, was able to play, half decent with Harden. But like, dude, I mean, literally, they're listening to you. Same kind of situation with Giannis, where I feel like, look, Giannis, man, you're gonna have to play better in the playoffs. Same with Harden. I mean, y'all have had the best record in the East. Back-to-back MVPs with Giannis, and then Harden, they're making moves because of you, have gotten you to the promised land, have been in those game 7s against the Warriors with Chris Paul. And now that they're getting your boy Westbrook to come play with you, they're making moves for you. I don't blame the Houston organization at all. I don't blame the Bucks organization at all. They're putting their focus on that superstar, but the superstars got to perform too. Harden, you can't. No, I'm sorry, man. You can't opt out of this one. You can't go hop with your boy KD or go hop down there in South Beach. And I advise those teams stay out of that trade.
I mean, I don't even think they were attracted to him. I mean, do like the Jimmy Butlers of the world who really pushed and basically was an extension of Pat Riley and that whole team blue collar culture. They don't want nobody coming in who's not going to defend, who's putting up high volume shots. does KD and Kyrie really want James Harden? I haven't heard no big push. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, that'd be cool, but I haven't heard no big push for that. And then you talk about the same person that when he got a multi-million-dollar deal with Adidas, he was seeing rocking Nikes. So James Harden kind of go to his own drum, and I think what happened is the league was, enamored by him because they thought there was something there. And this is, I don't dislike James Harden. I don't got no issue, but I just think that his style of basketball is not going to be successful. Now, maybe years later we'll look back and say, oh, it was something with James Harden, but he just shoot the rock all the time.
Yeah, it's hard to play with him.
Different if he was a lockdown defender. It would be different if he can match up on the other end and give you something. But no, he's just a high volume shooter, and that is not translated to playoff success. So all the other stuff, you kill me with that. I'm looking at the time, and we're doing good. We got about 5 good minutes to stay within the time frame we need, and I'm really impressed with what we've done. But with the 5 minutes, we got one more topic we could touch on. Talk about some fellas kind of having a fallout. We kind of mentioned one of the names directly. We mentioned both their names indirectly. Kyrie and LeBron. LeBron was had just stated that he was hurt by Kyrie making a comment that now with Kevin Durant, he's finally with another player that he can trust, a teammate he can trust to take the last shot. And before I kick it to you, it was LeBron's statement was, it wasn't so much just the statement itself, it was the timing. He said this during their playoff run, like right at the start of their final series. It's like, my take, and I'll get to like, Kyrie, man, sit your ass down. That's just a hater comment. And LeBron, I can appreciate him being so transparent and saying he was bothered by it. I can appreciate, many people say, man, you shouldn't care about that. But that's like you being on a show with me, and then you going on a show and someone say, yeah, man, when I dealt with Lindsey, man, he was this, and that. And I'm like, dang. And it's not that you can't be critical of me, but I just think LeBron was just hurt by it. And I can appreciate him saying that. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I heard it best, man, from this is LeBron's show, his sponsor show, Uninterrupted, the podcast with Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye. I love watching that. And he opened up about it. He was like, he wanted nothing but the best for Kyrie. I mean, he even mentioned that if Kyrie won the league's MVP, he wouldn't be mad about it. I mean, he'd be happy if Kyrie won MVP because, I mean, LeBron has gotten to the point where I would say the comparison between him and Magic Johnson is probably the best. I think that's more of a comparison than him and Jordan.
As an all-around player? As
an all-around player or just basketball player and how they play. I think that's the best way to compare the two.
Team-oriented.
Yeah, and having good players around them and making them play better. And I think, it's the best comparison. But, I mean, Kyrie, we've seen what he's done without LeBron. I mean, he's filling out with injuries with the Celtics. Came back that year. Celtics weren't feeling him. And I've seen videos of Jaylen Brown and all them saying, man, we love Kyrie and all that. No, it did not seem like that. Y'all lost in 5 games and just quit. After y'all won game 1 against the Bucks made adjustments. Kyrie shot them out of the series. He takes himself to Brooklyn. Brooklyn is playing better with Karis LeVert as their vocal point and their star in the bubble and actually getting and competing against teams like Portland and last year who were at their caliber competing. Guys like Joe Harris stepping up, Spencer Dinwiddie playing well. I mean, Kyrie, man, I think Kyrie is probably going to be the most talented second option I've seen. I mean, I think he's a perfect second option, whether he believes that or not. That's where the whole ego and pride takes place in these NBA superstars. You just got to know your place. I mean, I'm not saying that to be like, you can never aspire to be the first option, but then again, it's your play style. Kyrie is like a go-to bucket getter, like at the game 7. Oh, I know Kyrie got the mismatch. They drew up the play. He was talking about that, letting Kyrie get that because he can get the switch on Curry and boom, history wrote itself right there. But I mean, the whole thing and knowing that Kyrie is the second option, it's something that he still is trying to grow and learn that. And he's the second option with KD. So I wonder how that's going to work.
Yeah. So I'll close out with this because we're right at the hour mark. You made some excellent points. My concern is that although he's won the national world championship and NBA championship, that he shows cancer type tendencies. You know, you wonder if it's not going his way in Brooklyn, if he's going to do something that's going to blow that up. That's all the time we have right now. Again, I want to thank the Streets of Talking Podcast Network. Shout out to Don Houston and Clarence Babor and all the growth. You can hear us at www.thestreetsoftalking.com on Saturday and Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, as well as Mondays and Tuesdays at 9 p.m. I want to thank Coach Orlando Watkins for always keeping us connected. And as we hit our hour mark, I also want to thank my able-bodied co-host, Mr. Terry McCord Jr. You're doing an awesome job. We got it all in. We picked up what we had to pick up on, and now we're wrapping up. So with that, I'll let you guys go, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching the SPS Edge Show.